with us. Today, we have a Brenlee Mogul Roman. Well, she is an occupational therapist, and she currently works as the National Clinical and Technical Education Manager for Permobil Canada. Brenlee has a background in clinical work and owned a private practice in Toronto for the past many years. She's a member of the Ontario Society of Occupational Therapists, sitting and mobility team, and a member of the board of directors of the Canadian Spinal Research Organization. And well, thank you for being here today, Brenlee. How can we, inform ourselves, like learn and to make a empowered decision that we know what we want?
Well, hopefully I have a resource that will help everyone on this call, and certainly we hope that you share it with some of your peers as well. Thank you for having me. As Federico said, I am an OT. I don't practice clinically anymore. I did work at Linters for many years ago. I've been working at Permobil for about 5.5 years now, so I'm the clinical education manager for Canada. So within our group, we developed this resource that we're going to highlight today. Permobil, for those of you who don't know, is a wheelchair manufacturer. It's been around for over 50 years. We are beginning, or our first product was a power wheelchair. So we have power wheelchairs. We own Tie-Lite manual wheelchairs. We do Roho and Comfort Company seating. We do Smart Drive Power Assist. And in Canada, our company also distributes beds and bed support surfaces and Body Point and Riften and Prime. So we've got a lot of stuff that we are involved. Obviously, we as a manufacturer provide the products to the vendors who you as consumers would go to. So basically what we're hoping today, this is nothing about Permobil or nothing about our products. This is about a cool resource. So let me just give me a moment, and I'm going to share my screen. All right, and if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to turn off my camera while I'm presenting. I tend to distract myself when I can see my face. So today, for the next little bit, I want to go over with you our Wheelchair Handbook, a consumer's guide to seating and mobility. So we'll talk about a lot of things, but the main thing we want to talk about is sort of going through the process. And like Nancy said in her story, it's so important not only to, have an advocate for you or try and advocate for yourselves. Get as much information about the process as you can so that you have the people around you who can hopefully assist you in making sure that not only does the equipment fit you, but it meets your needs, because you're the one that knows what you need to do, throughout your life and through that 24-hour period, and sort of combine your needs to what you want to do and make sure that the whole package fits correctly. So we'll talk about a little bit about this. So let me just go, there we go. Just before we get into the handbook, I just wanted to tell you, so our mission at Permobil is very interesting. It was stated by the founder of our company over 50 years ago, who is a doctor, Dr. Per Uden. And he said that every person with a disability has the right to have his or her handicap compensated as far as possible by aids with the same technical standard as those we all use in our everyday lives. What I like about this statement is that obviously we live by it with what we do daily. But he said this in 1967. So that's really long ago, when there really wasn't a lot of technology. And really our feeling as a whole is that everybody deserves to be mobile. Mobility and independence as much as possible, and having the right equipment is a right. It is your right. It is not, it is not something that, only some certain people should get. It is everyone's right. So that's what we believe. So in our guide, we are using the word consumer in place of other words that we tend to use for a wheelchair: end user, rider, person with a disability, or client. And when we were developing this guide, we really felt that to make this resource appropriate, the word consumer is best because a consumer is a person who is involved in the economy of the country, having control of the goods and services that they purchase and select. So this equipment is not then just provided to you. It implies that you are involved rather than somebody else just completely having control. So we hope that that gets the message across that you really do, as a consumer, have a strong voice and need to be involved in the process. So our intention for creating this guide, or if you want to call it a manual, whatever you want to call it, is for a consumer to prepare for, or maybe take the information with when you go to an appointment or you're setting up that assessment time with your therapist or you're meeting with the vendor, so that you can refer back, or maybe you've read it before and you can advocate on really what you need and want on your chair and seating system. So like Federico said, we want you to be empowered. We want you to be educated before and during your appointments and throughout the process. And so we want to make sure that we're going through the process in this guide. What you will see is that I'll show you sort of a little highlight of each chapter, is that we have a bunch of different helpful tips and hints. We have some information, we've got resources. This isn't sort of everything comprehensive. It doesn't have everything in it. We still really feel that you need that comprehensive evaluation by a therapist, and then involve a vendor and whatever other team members you need. This guide does have some Permobil specific highlights, which we're not going to talk about today, but certainly whatever manufacturer type of product you're getting, the generic information is here. All right, so let's start and just go through some of the chapters and show you what we have here. The first chapter is your right to choose. So making sure that your equipment fits you as an individual really requires you to have some insight into your needs, your values, your challenges, your routine, your preferences, even if you're a first-time wheelchair user and you're getting your first chair. So the more the team members have a clear picture of you and your life and what you want to do, what you need to do, it's going to help them to then figure out what types of features are going to help solve your issues. So the more information you can give to the team, then the better the fit is going to be, because then you can match features to your needs. So throughout the guide, you're going to see some differences. There is some US information and there's some information specific to Canada. And at certain times, like on this, you can see that we've separated it out with little flags so that, no one's getting information that's not correct. And it's certainly not all inclusive of all the resources out there, but it's definitely a start. Chapter 2 is the process itself. So we really want you as a wheelchair user, as a consumer, to be prepared for the visit, whether you've gone through the process before or not. Is know who the team members are. Know if you are using ADP as your funding source, the assistive devices program, as much as you can, try and find out some of the information about, what the process is through ADP, who meets criteria. You have your choice of vendor. You should have a therapist involved. You want to make sure that you have these people around you that are knowledgeable and will do things like measure you, take you out of your current chair, look at your needs rather than just, repeat what you had, assuming that it's going to work. So in the United States, they do require a physician referral. In Canada, it's a little bit different. It depends. If you're going through seating clinic or something like that, you might need to stop and get your doctor to refer you onward. But in most cases, especially in Ontario, you don't necessarily need the physician referral. Just find out who you're going to see if that's something that you need. You definitely want to make sure that you have an OT or PT evaluation. So again, if you are using the assisted devices program, it's got to be somebody who is authorized with the program so that they can do the funding form for you. And you want somebody who is experienced in seating and mobility, not somebody who is specialized in a different type of therapy like making splints or somebody who works in mental health. You need somebody who works in seating and mobility. Same thing, you want to find out who your vendor is and choose that. And then the process moves to, you have that, you're going to have your assessment by your OT or PT, and that assessment is a specialty assessment, postural, strength testing, skin health, looking at spasticity, range of motion. You should be transferred, you should be measured. The vendor maybe can be there at the same time because that's very helpful to be problem solving as to what might meet your needs. And then hopefully you'll be given the opportunity to try equipment. That's getting a little bit harder these days, but you want to really push for the fact that you shouldn't be purchasing something that you're going to have for 2 to 5 years and having to sit in it all day, every day, if you can't try it out and see it. Then we move on to recommendations and selections specific to what your needs are. Hopefully your therapist and your vendor are going to do their documentation. Sometimes you need some justification letters. Depends if you're using other insurance. You'll get approval for funding, hopefully, for at least part of your chair. Return to your therapist and the vendor for fitting and training when your device comes in. Everything gets delivered, and it should be set up properly, adjusted correctly, and you should be given education on how to use all the features, the maintenance, the repairs, and the adjustability. And this is a part that really does get lost. So you really want to make sure that you don't just have this dropped off at your door. You need to have a full fitting, and you need to make sure that this gets done correctly. Chapter 3, we start into some specifics. So we talk about power wheelchairs in Chapter 3, and it will go through the different types of base configuration. So front wheel, mid wheel, or rear wheel drive. Talks about the different seat functions, moving the seats into tilt or recline, seat elevation or forward tilt, all of the different ways that power wheelchairs have capabilities of changing the body position throughout the day. Talk about any kind of technology that helps you understand your chair better or connects you with your vendor a little bit better. And things like, do you need lights? Can you get a light package? Pediatric needs specifically around power chairs. Obviously, pediatric needs compared to adult needs are very different in all types of equipment. So this chapter is all about power chairs. And what you'll see within each chapter is we will highlight throughout each chapter certain features of that type of equipment. So in this one, you see just an example of a power adjustable foot plate height. And then within each chapter, we also have potential health benefits, social engagement, and functional activities or benefits that a power wheelchair may help you to gain. So we have these 3 topics in every chapter just to give you a little bit more idea of what this type of equipment can do for a person who requires it. And we have client quotes or consumer quotes throughout the guide and some lived experience examples, just to ensure that this was a guide that was put together by a group of clinical educators, but certainly with feedback and with our experience from all working with consumers throughout the years. We also go through some of the different things for power wheelchairs, some of the, the cool other stuff that's important in setup, certainly programming, the ability to use Bluetooth and infrared and maybe pair a wheelchair to your computer. So your wheelchair joystick perhaps could be your mouse on your computer. There's a lot of really neat things that many power wheelchairs have capability of doing. Memory seat functions. So if you have that sweet spot or perfect position that you like to drive in, you could potentially just push a button and it's programmed in and would take you there. So ways that you can manage your skin, ways that you can change positioning throughout the day, and ways to make a power wheelchair the best for you individually to ensure that you're safe, that you're able to drive, that it's not too fast, too slow, too jerky, that it's programmed exactly to how you need. So we have information about that. Chapter 4, we move on to manual wheelchairs. We go through the differences between folding and rigid, which Nancy was, she's experienced both. We talk about the different materials that wheelchair frames and components are traditionally made out of. We talk about some of the characteristics and different features that you may see in the different manual wheelchairs. And then we go through some of what are called accessories, which, might be necessary. The word accessory isn't the best, but that's the arm support, the backpack, the calf pad, all of those things that can be very necessary, but can be added or not put on the chair. Again, we review in different areas that health benefits, social engagement, functional activities, sometimes of a more overall topic, and sometimes we get a little specific. So in this example, it is ergonomic seat, and we've specified what an ergo seat is and how that may help and how that's available on some manual wheelchairs. And then again, that lived experience, quotes from clients so that it comes to light what it actually means, just like Nancy said, to have something that actually works for you. We move on to power assist devices and what the different power assist devices that are out there can potentially do for you, how they can reduce repetitive strain, how we can ensure that you can still be in a manual wheelchair, but be moving and going over different terrains and not stressing and straining. We go into some of the specifics about our product is Smart Drive, so there are some specifics about how it works. And again, there's other power assist devices out there, and they all work slightly different, hopefully for achieving the same goal, but there's different features and benefits of different products that might match your needs more specifically and help you get through your day and through your years. Then we move on to seating and positioning. So things like back supports, cushions, different components like a lateral support, accessories, and then alternative surfaces, a support in your bed, a cushion on your toilet seat, a cushion on your commode seat, those types of things. And when you are measuring, and I know we were discussing before a little bit about back support height and whatever, it is definitely personal preference. But if it's done correctly, it's also done so that it's measured to your needs. So it's measured to not only the height of your trunk, but also the amount of support you require and the amount of movement you need, like Federico said, and then also for your comfort. And then hopefully you can make sure that you're matching everything correctly so that you're sitting upright, you're sitting comfortably, you don't have too much extra weight. And those are questions that you all want to ask during the process. We talk about cushion specifically, whether it's just a cushion for comfort or a cushion for positioning or a cushion for skin protection, and the questions that you want to ask and the things that you're going to gain from getting different types of material and different types of design of a product. And then when we talk about accessories, there are things like maybe a pelvic belt or a chest strap, how they work, what materials are they made out of, the cover of your cushion, what's it made out of? Does it assist you in transfers? Does it keep you from sliding forward? So we go through those things. You can see in some of the chapters, we have not only the helpful hints or helpful tips, we have little did you know, and we'll give you a little bit of information. So we sort of have those sidebars. And then again, that hopefully person with lived experience information. Chapter 6, we talk about funding, and this is a hard one because we try, there's so many different funding agencies within one province itself, let alone we know in Canada, every province is different. And just because we have assistive devices program here in Ontario, it doesn't mean that's the only funding agency. So we tried to be pretty generic when we talked about funding, and we tried to give some resources, and we tried to talk about some of the fact that you might get or you might need and or want a feature that isn't funded by the government funding agency, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't get it. And you want to make sure that your therapist and your vendor are still telling you what's out there, even if there might not be funding money for it, because we should not be making the financial decision for you as the consumer. You might have money in your bank that you're willing to pay for something. You might have a GoFundMe page that you can raise your own money. You might have somebody that will assist you in paying for an extra feature that maybe isn't covered. Not everything is always covered, but it doesn't mean you don't need it or it won't make your life better. So you want to make sure that you're given all of the information, even if there isn't necessarily funding money, and then you hopefully can make that decision. We started with a short list of some alternative funding sources beyond sort of the government funding programs. And again, this is not all inclusive by any means, but it is something that you always want to talk to your therapist, talk to Spinal Cord Ontario about, talk to whomever to try and find out, well, who else can I go to that might assist me with funding for a piece of equipment? And then chapter 7 is sort of our resources and advocacy section. And we know that really, unless our consumers are able to advocate for themselves, and or we as professionals can help to advocate for you, nothing will change in regards to funding and things becoming more available and easy to get. So we want, as much as you can, give your feedback to the therapist, to the vendors, to the manufacturers. Get involved in research if you can. Get involved if there's ever a focus group. Advocate, get involved with some of the funding agencies, and some of the associations and say, hey, I want to be involved because maybe we can help make a change. And so, same thing, we gave some resources within the guide that people can go to just to get some information. And then our chapter 8 is sort of the what's next. So once you have your equipment, what do you do now? Hopefully it wasn't just dumped off and you have no idea of who do I call if I have a problem? What happens if I need repairs? Do I go back to my therapist or do I go to the vendor? You want to make sure that you get all of that information and that you're provided with it so that you know what you need to do in regards to your wheelchair maintenance versus what you need to call your vendor for. It's like anything else, everything needs some daily maintenance or weekly maintenance or might need to be tightened up. Doesn't mean you have to pay to get that done, but hopefully if somebody can help you with a screwdriver or a wrench, you'll know what you should be looking at on your particular piece of equipment, how to maintain your cushion, all of that kind of stuff. If you have any other cool technology, if there's apps that are, paired to your equipment, those apps can give you a lot of information. And so you want to know, well, does my power wheelchair have an app associated with it that tells me when I need to charge my battery and how many miles I have before I lose, power in my power chair, or how far I went today, or how many times I repositioned. So if those things are available, you want to make sure that you hook yourself up with them. And then we talk about, other things like cushion care and maintenance, depending on what kind of cushion and back support and covers and all of those things that you get, how do you take care of them? So most manufacturers have some sort of quick guide or videos or instructions. And it's important that you are provided with this information so that you know what you and or your caregivers can do. And then also, how do you learn to use your chair, whether it's a manual chair or a power chair? How do you learn to do a wheelie or get up a curb? How do you learn to drive up a ramp or get into your van in a power chair? There's lots of resources, and we have some listed about where you can go to actually learn this stuff online, and also some programs that maybe you could go in person to actually learn some of the skills. You're always learning, especially as a first-time wheelchair user. You'll be very different day one than you're going to be, a year from now or 2 years from now. So you really want to always be the best you can be and adjust your equipment and use the features as best as you can. And then also who do I call and when do I call them? Get that information, get the phone numbers, get sort of maybe a schedule if you can. Should I take my chair in every year to get, spring tune-up? Who do I call my therapist, or do I need to go to the vendor directly? Or am I discharged by my therapist, so do I need to go back to my doctor for a re-referral? You need to know what to look for in yourself if something changes, because you might be able to get a new piece of equipment between that funding time, that 5 years, if you've had some sort of body function change, physical change, or size change. So our wheelchair handbook, that's what it looks like. I'm gonna hold one up for you after. It's really cool. Basically, if you're able to, and we can put these, we can send this out after. We have it on our website that it can be downloaded, so you can just look at it and download it. And then as of recently, we also have a digital version. So it's a little bit different. It has the same content, but you don't have to just scroll through every page. You can hop around, and there's a few different features. So the second link will take you to the digital version, which we're sort of just working on, and we'd love feedback as you go through them so that we can modify, adapt, change the information in this as we find necessary. And if you guys, you have any stories, if you have cool stuff that you're willing to share, we'd love to hear it, because then we can start including that on our digital guide so that it becomes a little bit more interactive as well. So I'll leave this screen up for a minute just to let you know, if anyone wants to, you're more than welcome to email me. Again, we can put this, maybe I'll put it in the chat for you after. By all means, I'm more than happy to answer any further questions. So that is all I have, Federico. I'll leave the screen up just for a minute if anyone wants to take a picture or anything like that.